Hi, I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. Day 22 of the Sean Diddy Combs testimony, starting with a slight delay after the judge called a private meeting with the prosecution, defense, and the lawyer for Combs' ex-girlfriend testifying as Jane. After some discussion, the judge ruled that the certain details surrounding a 2024 trip to Las Vegas that Jane testified about must remain undisclosed. We'll have more on why coming up. And after almost a week of testimony, Jane has finally been excused from the witness stand. In her testimony, she has described the abuse she alleges she endured during her relationship with Combs. She testified today that Combs was enraged that she witnessed another rapper's sex party. The defense quoted Combs as saying, "I can't believe you went to another man's freak-off." Jane also testified about an alleged physical altercation between the two last year, one that she said she instigated. She testified that she pushed Diddy's head, calling him names, then told the court that Combs escalated the violence, saying, quote, "He kicks me on the back of the leg and I fell on my buttocks. He lifted me up in a chokehold." Now, Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges. If convicted, he faces the possibility of life in prison. And coming up, some new evidence released today, more voice memos from Combs to Jane. The jury heard them, and now you can too. But first, let's get right to the federal courthouse here in Manhattan. ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky is there. And Aaron, now that Jane's cross-examination has come to an end, tell us what the jury has learned from her time on the stand.
They heard that she, like maybe Cassie Ventura, was another alleged victim of sex trafficking. She talked about the trauma, how she felt manipulated and used, and how she was meant to feel like she was some kind of a performing porn star because she was made to have sex with so many different men on so many different occasions while Sean Combs watched, even when she vomited or was ill, was infected, if she was tired or hungry. She said she tried to give subtle cues, but that Combs did not pick up on them. Instead, made her get in an outfit, lingerie and high heels, and get out there and sleep with those men. But on cross-examination, the defense confronted her with text messages that were effusive and suggestive, some downright raunchy, to make it seem like she was a willing, even eager participant. And when the defense attorney, Tenny Garagos, Eva, asked, "Do you regret those nights in those hotels?" she said, "I resent Sean Combs." But the defense seemed to be implying that she did not regret being with Combs at the time federal prosecutors said he was trafficking her for sex.
There was one point during Jane's testimony today that the jurors had to put headphones on. What were they listening to?
They were listening to an extended conversation between Combs and Jane, and we couldn't hear it. It was an exhibit that was admitted under seal, so it was a little disjointed and hard to follow, but it seemed to be, based on what the defense was reading aloud, those portions read aloud, that they were highlighting some of these loving messages from Jane to Sean Combs, telling how much that, she loved him, how good their sexual chemistry was. And I think the idea, as one of the messages said, that everything ended on a positive note, was to suggest that Jane was not as traumatized by these things and by all of this sex as she said she was on direct examination.
Aaron, I also have to ask you about this private meeting that took place in the judge's chambers. What was that all about?
We don't know the full extent, but it seems like they were discussing a trip that Jane had taken aboard another rapper's private plane to Las Vegas. She says she was with a girlfriend. They flew on this rapper's private plane, and there she encountered Anton, one of the male escorts that she said she slept with in front of Sean Combs. And the defense, it seemed, wanted to reveal who this rapper was. They dropped a lot of clues, saying it's a famous rapper, a well-known rapper, an iconic rapper, as if to suggest perhaps that Jane was of this lifestyle, that she wanted to be in the company of rappers who were doing kinky sexual things, and this was part of the lifestyle that she was leading, not coerced into by Combs.
Aaron, you're outside the federal courthouse there, but just next door to where you are at the New York County Supreme Court, Sean Combs is now facing a new civil lawsuit. What are the allegations there?
Yeah, he's already facing some 6 civil lawsuits, but this one is from a woman named Chelsea Lovelace. She was an ex-girlfriend around Sean Combs somewhere between 2020 and 2024. Her name's actually come up at the criminal trial as somebody that Jane was jealous of because Combs had taken her on trips to like Turks and Caicos. But she says in her civil lawsuit now that Combs subjected her to the same kinds of assaultive and battering behavior that he's criminally accused of. She says that she too was made to sleep with other men. She's not part of the criminal case, but she is suing him now civilly and seeking unspecified damages.
We should note that we've reached out to Sean Combs' team for a response on that civil lawsuit. We have not yet heard back. Combs has denied other allegations, other lawsuits, and pleaded not guilty to his criminal charges. But this new lawsuit, what sort of picture does it paint of Sean Combs?
It paints, and I think it probably draws from, the kind of portrait that federal prosecutors have been presenting. Somebody who used bodyguards and assistants and employees to help further the kinds of sexual acts that he was demanding. Chelsea Lovelace, in her civil lawsuit, alleges that Combs took her places she didn't want to go, forced her into sexual situations she didn't want to be in, and had some of his people, some of his employees there to drive her places, fly her places, make the arrangements, very similar to the allegations we've seen in the criminal case, Eva.
Aaron Kontursky there at the federal courthouse. Thank you so much. Let's dig deeper into Jay's testimony. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer joins me now. And Brian, you were in court today. What stood out to you?
Aaron touched on just a few of those. But I'll say the two big ones was this Las Vegas trip that she went with this very prominent, iconic rapper. We don't know who that person is yet. Maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. But also another instance where Jane talks about the first time violence occurred between the two of them. Those, I think, were the big points of this. And they actually were connected in some way, shape, or form in terms of the violence that occurred, how Sean Combs found out about this Las Vegas trip, and then the fact that actually Sean Combs is alleged to have given her an ecstasy pill, and this is after the Cassie lawsuit, very important. And according to Jane, he stops and says, wait, is this coercion? And they both kind of pause there, and according to Jane, she does take the pill and ultimately does have foreplay with Anton, one of the entertainers. So I think it was kind of one big moment tied in with three of them in there.
There were, the jury got to hear some more recordings today from Combs. What did he say in those recordings?
Right, so in the recordings, I'm not going to quote it all here, but you have it here written out. The thrust of it and the way that it came out on cross-examination was that Sean Combs is not controlling her. This seemed to be a relationship that when she highlighted the toxicity of it, Sean Combs, in no lesser words, says, I don't want to be in a relationship like this, end this cycle, move on with your life so that you don't feel like I wasted your life. And I think that the argument here by the defense is he's not controlling, he's not coercing, he's not forcing anything. When it gets to a point where you, being Jane, doesn't want to be a part of the relationship, he's saying, go off, be in your own relationship. I don't want to be here, don't need to be here. And I think this is what they're trying to argue. There's no coercion in this case.
I have to ask you about this whole legendary, famous rapper situation, because I know that's what everyone wants to know about. Walk us through what happened here, what we know.
So it went along the lines of Jane was reaching out to a friend of hers who knew about this legendary rapper. And here we kind of see this January 2024 incident as Tenny Garagos and Jane go back and forth asking these questions about what was going on, how did you contact, who did you know, how did you know to go and reach out to this individual, how did you get onto their private jet, what happened when you were on that private jet. She talks about flashing the people there. She talks about Anton, someone that she knows of being an entertainer and participating in these hotel nights, and then continuing on with this incident. And I think everyone just keeps going like, who is this icon? Who is this person? I mean, there are only so many icons that we have in the rap and hip hop world, but that's how this played out.
Yeah, and people are going to be going online trying to figure out who this person is. Brian Buckmeyer, thank you so much for being with us. Still ahead, the cross of witness Jane is finished. Was it a hit or a miss for the defense? Our legal experts break it down when we return. Welcome back to Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy. Thank you for streaming with us. Today, the defense finished up its cross of the rapper's ex-girlfriend, who's been going by the pseudonym Jane. She's been on the witness stand for days now, and she has said a lot. Time to break down the legal strategies we've seen at play. Brian Buckmeyer is here as the defense. Bernardo Villalona analyzing the prosecution. Okay, Bernardo, under cross, Jane testified that Combs was upset because he found out she attended another man's freak off. Now, people hearing that are going to go, wait, what? Is that a problem for the prosecution?
No, I don't think it's a problem for the prosecution because there was a time when she was on a break with Sean Combs and her. They weren't even speaking because remember Cassie's lawsuit had filed and she looked at the lawsuit and saw similarities of her life with Sean Combs and Cassie's life with Sean Combs. I think in terms of how you argue it to the jury, the prosecution is going to be like, look, if anything, she's more credible because she's coming forward with this information. She could have easily have said, look, I never attended another freak off, but she wasn't an active participant aside from flashing herself, of course, doing this freak off.
You're making faces over there.
I don't know how you're, great job.
You asked me to argue it, right? We got to find an argument.
She is about that life, and that's what the defense is going to argue.
But who turned her out? Sean Combs. That's how she became a part of that life.
Is there a difference though? She wasn't like really participating in the same way.
She was watching.
Regardless, she's gone from she's gone from one prominent rapper who is the father of her child that we've heard about. Now she's with Sean Combs. Now she goes to another prominent, iconic rapper on their plane to be in a freak off, as they're alleging. This pattern is not good for the government in terms of the credibility of this witness. Okay, you want to argue that Sean Combs turned her out? Well, if she's gone from Sean Combs now, why is she now participating in what Sean Combs describes as a freak off? We don't know as of yet whether or not it's a true freak off. I will give the government that, but this doesn't help with her credibility.
But she didn't participate. So you make the argument that she only participates when she's forced by Sean Combs to participate.
On the stand, she said that she read pages of Cassie's lawsuit and it triggered her so much. Now she's going to actual ones and watching it. How does that gain credibility? Reading it is so horrible, but you're going to go watch it as well?
She's not participating in it.
I didn't say she's participating.
Is not present. It's not like she knew what she was walking into. She walked into this hotel room and all of a sudden she sees Anton, the former entertainer that was part of her life, doing it with someone else.
All right, let's listen to some voice recordings because we do have some voice recordings. They released 2 of them today. This one is from after, I believe, a June 2024 altercation. They had been, I think, in a trip on this one. Let's take a listen.
Hey, baby, we had a great time. Stay in the light. It's all good. Get your rest. You are the crack pipe. That's my new name for you, crack pipe. Or should I call you CP? But yeah, I want you to stay in the light. You know what I'm saying? We had a very, very good time together. Like so much fun. So much fun. Now go rest up. Get in your bag. Mwah. You know what I'm saying? Got your contract. Find a nice little spot. Put your mind at ease. And yeah, I had a great time. And I really, really want you to get some rest. I didn't know about you throwing up and all that. That's when I was like, hold up a second. All right, get some rest, baby. Love.
Okay, so this was March 2023. Let me just correct myself. This was after a trip to Turks and Caicos. Brian.
So the kissing, the loving, the affection, the defense is going to position this as, yes, was there a hotel night before that? Well, yes. Was there a hotel night where she threw up? Well, listen to what he's talking about when he says her throwing up. He was worried about her. He was concerned about her. You're hearing his own voice, not only describing his concern, but also I think something that Alexandra Shapiro said, this is not about what's in the mind of Jane, it's what's in the mind of Sean Combs. That even though she has these text messages and these little notes within them that what she's thinking, what she's presenting to Sean Combs is what he's operating with, and now we're seeing it here. We're also talking about the contract for the home. This isn't a contract of, I'm dangling over your head and you need to do this so I can control you. Go take care of yourself.
No.
Go be good.
She's saying you did a good good job. And because you did such a good job doing that hotel night, yes, I'm going to pay for you to have a roof over your head because now you're getting paid for your services. So there, you can even argue that in terms of the transportation to engage in prostitution. You know what? You did such a good job doing that hotel night that I'm going to start paying you for it. And the love contract is formed after that.
Okay, I want you to listen to another recording that was played in court. This was 2021. Combs can be heard asking Jane to set up a hotel night with a male escort named Don.
If you come in for 24 hours, yeah, you always wanted to set some up. So now you got the opportunity. So set some up for tomorrow night. That last vision we had was Don and ATL. See you put it together, baby.
All right, what do you think, Bernardo?
Problem for the prosecution, for the defense, and why I say that. Transportation to engage in prostitution. Dawn is from Atlanta. Set that up. So you're having him fly from Atlanta to whether it's Miami or Los Angeles. Here you have the transportation to engage in prostitution coming out of the mouth of Sean Combs. This is an easy charge for the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The sex trafficking is a bit iffy when you're dealing with Jane because you have that issue of whether there was really coercion. But in terms of transportation to engage in prostitution, you have that they're entertainers, that they're getting paid. You're flying them out from their locations, from Atlanta, from Los Angeles, to go to Miami or to go to Los Angeles.
You give them enough rope to let them hang themselves. He's saying this is something that we thought about, we planned about. You want to have your opportunity to do this. He is giving her carte blanche to say, we talked about this, you go do this. Yes, absolutely. It's
still not a defense to transportation to engage in prostitution.
Well, who did it? He's saying, you want to do it?
Using his money. Using his money. He's paying for it. So it goes to show the knowledge that he had, the intent, the plan.
But who did it? So you're saying if I take your money and go rob a bank, you rob the bank too?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if this is the argument that you're making here, and I think it could go both ways. At the end of the day, I don't think either of our arguments are going to win 12 people. But the difference between the prosecutor and the defense, I just got to win one person. You got to win all 12. And so if I can present the argument of, hey, I'm giving you carte blanche to go do this. Yeah, you can use my money, but if you want to do this and you want to plan this and you want to orchestrate it, and this is the person that we talked about, then sweetheart, I love you. Go and do it. And that's not him doing the crime.
So this is one instance. Remember that there are multiple instances. So you're picking on one instance. The prosecution just has to find one.
We're gonna have to leave it there because we're out of time. Bernardo, Brian, thank you both for being with us. Coming up, snitches get stitches? How big of an impact does that code of silence have? We'll take a look at the challenge of getting witnesses to the stand. Proving a case in court often depends on the witnesses, but as the phrase goes, snitches get stitches. And getting someone to tell you, let alone a court, what they know, can be a real challenge. Joining us now to give us a better understanding of it all, retired NYPD detective and the director for the Black Law Enforcement Alliance, Mark Claxton. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us. This idea of being a snitch or snitching is for the most part not looked at very positively. How do you convince people to come forward? How do you protect them after they do?
Well, that's one of the real challenges as law enforcement professional investigators is having people come forward. First off, identifying possible witnesses, but to have witnesses be forthright and open in their communications with you, and then having them more secure and confident enough to come into a courtroom if necessary and present their stories. So there are significant challenges with people in general. And when you have this stitches get stitches and that kind of folklore that goes on, that makes it even more complicated and much more difficult when you're trying to assist in prosecuting a case.
We've seen issues of police mistrust all across the country. How does that affect you when you're trying to make contact with someone?
Well, it really affects, when you're talking about criminal prosecution, it really affects it on two levels. One is you have the potential witnesses that sometimes have a hesitancy to be cooperative with law enforcement because of perhaps their past experiences or their perceptions about what law enforcement is and what law enforcement does. But then on the other level, on the other hand, you have possibly jurors who have their own set of experiences with law enforcement, and that oftentimes will affect or impact how they are receiving a case or trusting the information that's coming forward from law enforcement community. So it's really a double-edged sword that has to be navigated.
Mark Claxton, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back with new episodes every day of the trial. The show streams right here on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, and Hulu weekdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. For even more on the Diddy trial, make sure to follow our podcast, Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy, hosted by our very own Brian Buckmeyer on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Eva Pilgrim in New York. Have a good rest of your day.